today I have the pleasure of welcoming Noga Arbel, who has been a policy strategy researcher previously with the Israeli Foreign Ministry. So Hasbara is a term used here in Israel and around the world in circles, in pro-Israel circles, to refer to the efforts to correct the lies and the misrepresentations that are usually made about the state of Israel or about the Jewish people. So that's called Hasbara.
It's a notion that comes from Jews being in diaspora for so many years, I mean thousands of years, because you feel like you're constantly having to explain what it is that you're doing to people who don't know you. And because there's so many misconceptions about Israel, and again, you don't want to use the word propaganda because it indicates that you're lying when we're not. We're really just trying to set the record straight.
Good.
We use the word hasbara. It's been subverted by the people who are trying to make Israel look bad as it is, but I think a big part of the problem is the fact that we're still trying to explain ourselves, because nation states don't explain their needs, nor do they explain their existence. There's one country in the world that still has to answer questions of the validity of its existence. There's one. That's us. And I think Hasbara is a big part of that problem, because once you invite the question, once you find yourself on the accused chair trying to say, no, we actually did right, you create a different dynamic where now you owe someone an explanation for your existence, which Israel does not. Israel is the only country in the world that was founded based on international agreement in the UN, as well as its own ability to create itself, direct historical ties that go back 4,000 documented years to the country, and an ability to hold the land. Okay, we have every possible justification in existence. No other country in the world actually has the whole set. We're the only ones, and still.
In other words, Israel is the country in the world that has the best established right to exist of any country.
Yes, and still Israel's right to exist is the only one that is challenged. Jews attract attention regardless of what they do, no matter where they are.
Explain to our non-Jewish viewers what people in the Jewish culture mean by galut in psychological terms.
The people of Israel belong to the land of Israel. When the Jews were exiled from
their own land,
from Judea 2,000 something years ago by the Romans, Jews believe it was a punishment by God. No other entity can separate between the people of Israel and the land of Israel. It was a punishment for our sins. It was not a victory on the Romans' side as much as it was our loss.
I see.
And we spent 2,000 years wondering. Now you have to understand, in normal situations, people who emigrate will have lost most of their hold on their origin by like the fourth generation. Like you will have interesting customs
they
and
end up blending into whatever place they're in.
Jews never did that. We were always a separate entity. We also, you have to remember, we lost sovereignty of the land. Jews never actually left. There was always Jewish presence here. It was just subdued by conquerors.
Right, so Jews remained here.
Yes, under conquest. Jews are the indigenous people. They remained under conquest for 2,000 years.
So many Jews remained here, but they were oppressed by conquerors.
Yes, that is another, it's important to understand, that is another concept of the Gola. It's not just exile from the land, which is bad enough as it is. It's the loss of
sovereignty.
Of liberty. Romans came and conquered the Jews because the Jewish kingdom was being subverted. Because
the Jewish kings were not behaving properly.
The original separation of powers is Jewish. It comes from the Bible. You separate between the king, the priest, or judge, depending on Nazeh, and the prophet. That's how it works. Mamlechet Hashmonai, the kingdom of Hashmonai, they were priests. They were both priests and kings. That is not allowed. You cannot force Judaism down anyone's throat. That's not how it works.
Right, but it seems to me that what you were describing is a betrayal of the Jewish tradition by the Jewish ruling elite,
Yes.
it's not clear to me why the Jewish people should be punished with genocide at Roman hands because the king misbehaved.
The notion of the Jewish nation is a lot more complex than that. You just made a separation that doesn't actually, why is it, Judaism really is the origin for the notion of democracy. But
I agree.
But the way that it works is you are at the same time individual and part of a collective. And you understand that all individuals have a responsibility for the behavior of that collective. And if you look at the way that the Bible describes it, as long as there was no king, as long as there was no construct that was agreed by the people, then the people of Israel throughout the book of Judges are judged because of their own sins. Once you have a king, you get punishment and reward based on the behavior of that king. The basic tenets of Judaism is that if you have a king, you chose it. If you remember, it's a choice to have a king. If you choose to give your agency to someone else, you are by that act of giving the agency responsible for their actions.
Judaism is about freedom. I agree with that. You also said Judaism is the origin of the separation of powers, which the function of which is to make sure that totalitarianism cannot be imposed on people. Right? I agree with that too. Where I'm having difficulty is when you say that you can't question this idea that if the king misbehaves, the entire people should be, hold on, let me just finish, that the entire people should be punished.
Democracy and liberty are founded on individual responsibility. A king without a kingdom isn't a king. You have a prime minister, okay? You have become the prime minister, you've been ordained, but you don't have an army and nobody's following you. How strong are you as a prime minister? The President of the United States is the most powerful leader in the world. But that's not because of the identity of the person. It's because of the strength of the country that he is leading.
Okay.
Okay? To that end, Putin was not really elected, but is leading a much weaker country. And that country isn't weaker because it lacks in resources or in people. It's weaker because the people that are subjugated to President Putin are subjugated to him. So the strength or the ability of a king to subjugate a people in the same notion is derived from the strength of the nation.
Okay, so
if you choose to subjugate yourself to a king, and the Bible warns you from that again and again and again, you are responsible for the consequences of that choice. It is absolutely the responsibility of Israel as a nation that we're at a position where terror organization can kidnap 1,200 of our people and murder them.
Okay.
We have allowed that to happen. That does not negate Hamas's complete and utter 100% responsibility for the evil that they have brought upon us. But along the way, we made choices. We could have made different ones that allowed that evil to fester. If you make choices that allow evil to grow, you will pay the price. One of the worst, every time someone in Israeli security says that, I cringe. We can give back all of the prisoners that are responsible for the murder of hundreds of Israelis because we'll know how to deal with them later. That right there is a really bad choice that brought us to the position where we are now negotiating with people who kidnapped our people. That is how we got there, because we made, as a nation, we made choices to make ourselves weaker.
So it is possible for something to happen that is the fault of the ruling elite without being the fault of the people. Is that possible?
No, I believe that the ruling elite can betray the people that have chosen them, but not that there weren't choices along the ways that have allowed that position to continue.
If we were to apply that general principle, say, to not a Jewish context, say to China, that would mean that the Chinese are not innocent for the crimes they suffered under Mao.
No, not at all.
They're guilty.
Yeah.
The Chinese people are guilty
Yes.
for the murder of the Communist Party visited upon them, even
Yes.
though they were not even communists.
How can they not be? The one thing that is more powerful than one person is two people, by definition. You can teach a people to be subjugated. You accept the restrictions of your situation as just,
Okay,
even
now,
when they're not.
It seems to me that if the ruling elite lies to the people,
Yeah.
they have information that they don't share
Yeah.
with the people, and then they present the people with choices,
Yeah.
and the people make a choice,
Yeah.
but they're making a choice based on a lie,
Yes.
because the ruling elite has misrepresented reality.
Yes.
Okay. In that particular situation, can't we say that the people are innocent and the rulers are guilty? I will
do
give you
that?
an example. If somebody
Hang on,
rapes a
you're a
woman,
man of faith.
the woman is responsible because she suffered? I don't think that makes any
she's
sense.
not Let's take your example.
She's
okay?
a victim,
no,
right?
No, hang on.
She's a victim.
No, she doesn't have to be a victim. She suffered. There's a very, very, very big difference.
She's not a victim if she was raped?
No. Victims are weak and powerless. The fact that someone attacked you doesn't mean that you have to be their victim. One of the big things that Israel has not properly done in many years is fight back.
Well, I agree with that.
So
But
I don't have. So if Israel
but why,
chooses,
why is that the fault of the people if the leaders are lying to them?
Why are we talking about fault again? I don't want to talk
Or
about
responsibility?
Okay, when you talk about fault, you create victims. When I say I'm not a victim, I don't mean I wasn't viciously attacked. My parents live in Alumim. I can't even begin to describe to you the horror of the 7th of October, because Alumim is one of the places that was attacked. Okay? I don't think that the fact that my parents were attacked means that I am now powerless against my attackers. If you choose to be a victim, and that's a choice, then you have to go explain yourself to the world and ask for permission to annihilate the people who attacked my parents.
Okay.
I'm not asking for anyone's permission because I am not a victim. I don't need to explain why it is that I attacked Hamas. I don't owe you an explanation. I don't. I don't have to justify my actions to you because I am a sovereign nation. I don't need permission.
Good.
I don't. For some reason, Israeli prosecutors seem to operate under the assumption that they are subjugated to the ICJ and that they should hold
International
Israeli
Criminal,
Justice Court, International Court of Justice, that they should, for some reason, hold Israeli soldiers to a standard that Israelis did not choose for themselves.
Okay.
And they're trying to tie the hands of Israeli soldiers and not allow them, not only defend their country, not even allow them to defend themselves. We have ridiculous orders in place under which Israeli soldiers are allowed to shoot to kill in Gaza people who they know are Hamas. And I don't know if you know that, but Hamas is the only army in the world that wears their uniform during a ceasefire and go to work wearing regular clothes. But you're only allowed to shoot to kill Hamas and Islamic Jihad.
If they're wearing their uniform.
If you know that they're Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Right. And if you come across I don't even remember the name of the organization that kidnapped the Bibas family and then brutally murdered 2 children with their bare hands, those people you're not allowed to shoot to kill, only to neutralize. This is an edict accepted by a very specific group of Israeli, it's not even lawmakers because they didn't make the rules, they are making it up, but they don't have the authority to do that. That is tying Israel's hands in its battle.
It seems to me that these rules of engagement, which I agree with you, are ridiculous.
Yeah.
Those are rules of engagement that the people running Israel decided on.
No, the people who are elected to run Israel are not actually running the country. We are in the midst of a horrible aristocratic revolution. It's a coup.
You're saying it's not even the elected rulers who are imposing these rules of engagement.
Yeah, it's a silent aristocratic coup.
There's a judicial coup going on in Israel, and those are the people imposing these rules of engagement.
So you know what the big difference in Israel now is, for the first time ever? that the soldiers and their parents and their friends are saying no. That the battle for who gets to make the rules is actually being waged, and we're taking back our liberty.
Well, good.
This means that up until now, we've allowed them to subvert it.
Who do you think Israelis could elect who would clean house in this manner? Who can do this?
Look at what you just did. I spent the whole thing trying to explain what individual responsibility is, and you went straight for the king. You want someone else to clean up house for you.
No.
That's not how this works. The more people speak truth and the more people demand truth of their leaders, the ability of the anarchists to subjugate us will be reduced. This is not who do you elect next kind of situation. There's no difference between Netanyahu now and Netanyahu a year and a half ago. The difference is the people and their demands of him. We neglected our freedom.
Thank you very much for joining us, Noga.
Thank you very much for having me.
I hope to do this again soon. Thank you very much.